President Chaput, here. Treasurer Battisti, excused. Vice Treasurer Kai. Secretary Wu.
Here.
Chief of Staff. Director of PR. Director of Wellness and Inclusion. Pro Temp Ludewan. Senator Fisher. Senator Hordern. Senator Khan. Senator Pino. Senator Rose. Senator Ritchie. Senator Novak. Senator Gillis. Senator Capo. Senator Weddle. Advisor Artajani. All right. Advisor Wadsworth. Webb. CFB. Wildcat Media. Wildcat Esports. SAC. ResLife. All right. That concludes roll call. Yes, Senator Novak.
So that right now is the proper time to do it, but I'd like to make a motion to add something.
Nope, you gotta wait. All right, on to the approval of the minutes agenda, starting with today's agenda. Senator Novak.
I'd like to add Senate Bill number 2526-09, Organization Policy is the Procedural / Constitution template change to the agenda.
This being the one attached to the minutes and agenda for today.
Yes.
All right, is there a second? Second by Senator Rose. Moving into discussion for the addition to the agenda. Is there any discussion? Senator Novak.
This was meant to be added today, but I accidentally misremembered which bill first asked me to make, and so I made the wrong bill. And I didn't realize until today, and I also didn't realize until today that I could still attach it, so that's why this is being added now. That's it. I yield.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion on the addition of the bill to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go into voting for the addition. All those in favor of adding the bill to the agenda, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain, that passes 10-0-1. Alrighty, back into the agenda as a whole. Is there any further discussion for the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go into voting on the agenda. All those in favor of today's agenda, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain, that passes 11-0-0. Moving on to the minutes of the 9th. Is there any discussion for the minutes of the 9th? Pro Temp Ludewan.
In the meeting minutes, but under Senator Weddle's resolution for pushing back for the open forum, the vote states 2-2-3, then it later states that the vote was passed. I don't think that's a number that should have been passed.
Sorry, no, it got passed during executive session. I think I put that after, so we put the vote in because this was not during executive session when we were in the discussion phase, and then we went into executive session. They voted on it again, and then I put it passed in executive session. Sorry about that. I should have responded back to your email.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion for the minutes of the 9th? Seeing no further discussion, we'll move into voting. All those in favor of the minutes of the 9th, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain, that passes 11-0-0. Alrighty. That concludes the approval of the minutes agenda. Moving on to announcements. President Lunaharo.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you all had a nice break. I'm sure you're all aware of what this announcement's going to be about, but the special election will begin today. So if you are interested in the open positions, which are SGU Treasurer, SGU Secretary, SGU Chief Justice, and Senators, the acting senators will have to rerun during this special election. If you are interested in any of this position, during open forum, you may announce your candidacy. All you have to do is go up to the mic, say your name, and say, I want to run for whatever position you want to run for. Yes, acting senators, yes. Yes. Thank you.
Alrighty, that concludes announcements. Moving on to guest speakers. There are no guest speakers. Moving on to executive reports, starting with President Luna Haro.
Morning again, everyone. Regarding the special election, if you obviously need to reach out to us for the candidacy form and the interest form, so please reach out to either me, Forrest, or anybody on the executive board. In addition, I'm still working with the administrators to develop the accountability system that will help us track the progress of SGU resolution. This will ensure that the resolutions that we send out, we can see proper transparency, follow through, and that the voices of our students are taken seriously. I announced this last week, and this is still in the works. In addition, I'm also working with a very exciting project with the president. I've talked about it with our advisor, and if this goes through, SUNY Poly will be the first in New York to implement this. And although I cannot talk much about it right now, it is very exciting, and I hope it goes through. Next week, we will have the career fair on Thursday, exactly at this time. So it is very likely that we will not have any bills or resolution. We might just go through the report and then open forum for anybody that wants to announce candidacy, so that we can all go to the career fair, because at the end of the day, we're students. This is our career that we're talking about. Next, the food. We've heard a lot of complaints regarding the food here on campus, and I want everybody here to know that your complaints are not being ignored. Advisor R.T. Gianni and I had a brief conversation about the food here on SC, and we're working on a long-term solution. In the meantime, we have the food committee that you can address to for your concerns, and I cannot stress this enough, but please be respectful. Please be respectful to the Airmark employees. Be respectful to Paula. We understand you're frustrated, you pay a lot of money for the food, but at the end of the day, if you're being disrespectful, nothing productive is going to come out of that. So please be respectful to the workers, be respectful to everybody that you talk to, so that we can get somewhere productive. Last but not least, I noticed everybody is dressed business casual. It's very nice, it's very nice. So I'd like to clap for ourselves today. Let's hope we keep this up moving forward, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, Vice President report. Hello, everyone. Still working with a couple of the orgs on policies and procedures, and along with that, I will let everyone know on election committee what the plan is going forward after today. Thank you. I yield. Treasurer report.
Report.
All right. Secretary report.
No report.
Okay. Moving on to director reports, starting with Chief of Staff.
Say that the application forms for the 2 director positions have been pushed to next Wednesday, so anyone interested can apply to those. I yield.
All right. Director of PR.
The application process has officially ended for. Okay, howdy y'all. I know officially the application process for Deputy FPR has ended, but due to low engagement, I will also be extending the application, I guess, till next Wednesday as well. And as for people that have already applied, please pay attention to your emails for an interview availability form. And we also have a couple projects in the work for our social media, so look out for that as well. And I yield.
All right. Director of Wellness and Inclusion.
Hi guys. So our committee is being set up and we're meeting every Tuesdays at 3. Location has not been confirmed, but our co-chair is Amina Khan. Did I say that right? Amina Khan, my bad. And right after this meeting at 3, I'll be meeting with Mark Montgomery. So yeah, I yield.
All righty. Advisor Arts Johnny. No?
Although apparently the agenda has not been posted on Engage for today's meeting. Someone else told me that, so I started what Zach Bud know quickly. Sorry.
Does Lauren usually do that?
Advisor Arsatrani.
Okay. I'm going to yield to Brittany Morowick. She has a couple of announcements from Cabinet that she would like to share. Sorry, she's going to finish her popcorn first. I yield.
Oh, this is my first time ever talking here. So just a reminder that next week is the Research and Innovation Week, and there's a couple events. I know they happen usually when you guys are in class, but there are some later events, some that are prep for the career fair, so definitely they have some submissions, but they're looking for some more. I asked, it could be an elevator pitch about anything. So if you have a great idea for a club, or if you have a great idea for an invention or a video game or whatever you're passionate about, 90 seconds, submit that and you could win some money. So thank you. I yield.
Advisor Wadsworth.
I don't really have any updates for this week. We do have do you want to talk a little bit about the DB walk? Yes. So tomorrow, starting at 3 o'clock, we're calling it the Stadium Courtyard. We will be having the Domestic Violence Awareness Walk. We're calling it Pause Against Violence was the key word. First 100 students who show up get a free t-shirt. They're very soft, so come grab one. And then next Wednesday, the 22nd, is Polly Goes Pink for breast cancer awareness, which will also have free t-shirts. That starts at 4 o'clock with a women's soccer game to follow. So, and the Domestic Violence Awareness Walk will have a women's volleyball game right after that. So make sure to show up. I expect to see you all there. Very excited about it. Show up and show your support. I yield.
Alrighty, that concludes director reports. Moving on to committee reports, starting with Policy Committee. Hello, everyone. Policy Committee is staying busy. We have a couple bills on the table today, and we are continuing our meetings at 3 today to continue working on more bills. If you would like to show up, please show up. I yield. Budget Committee.
Hey, everybody. Treasurer Batisti's not here today to give details on what we've been working with the Budget Committee, but we're still working on the Financial Policy 12th edition. Hopefully when everything is solidified, it will be on the table very soon. I yield.
Student Success.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be chair. Senator Pena will be co-chair.
We will be meeting Thursdays at 5 p.m. We are not sure of a location yet. And since that is after business hours, me and Senator Pena are going to find a time we can meet with staff and faculty during business hours.
All right.
I yield.
Director PR.
I had a question for Policy Committee, actually, if you had kind of an estimation on when you would officially have the entire policy and procedure kind of non-contradictory and such.
Sure. I'll clarify that. Yeah, that is the point of Policy Committee, so we are working on it through the year.
So is that like by the end of this year or next year?
Bills take time. Everything takes time. We'll try and get it out as quickly as we can, but as correctly as we can.
Gotcha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our first meeting will be this Friday, 12 p.m. in the Student Center Theater, and I hope to see you all there. Alrighty. Wellness and Inclusion Committee.
But like I said, we'll be meeting every Tuesdays at 3. That's all I have.
Food Committee.
So, no time and place yet, but I believe we're all in agreement that I will be chair of the
Alrighty. Safety and Facilities Committee.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be chair, and Senator Ritchie is going to be co-chair. The City and Facilities Committee is also currently not up and running because we are waiting to hear back from UP and facilities if the time that currently works best for our senators who are in the committee also works for them, as we cannot run the committee without having at least one member from each on-campus organization was to be there. I yield.
Class KIF Committee.
I'm excited to announce that I will be
Gift Committee and Senator Khan will be co-chairing. We do not yet have a time or meeting place, but I'm hoping to have a meeting scheduled for next week. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, that concludes committee reports. Moving on to organizational reports, starting with Webb.
Welcome back from break. Web doesn't have much going on this week, but we do have our bowling tonight. I must stress, please do not show up until 10:30. We will also be checking all student IDs and validating that you are a registered student when you are going to bowling, so we don't have issues with that. And then next week on the 21st, we have our dodgeball and jailbreak night from 7 to 9 in the field house. And then also coming up, we have our Walter Wicked Fest for Halloween and the Salem trip. An email will be going out soon if you have signed up for the trip. And once again, just stay tuned to our socials and engage for more information. I yield.
CFB.
CFB is done working on activation funding for new clubs, and we're figuring out insurance for other clubs, but we're also looking to make new policy changes. They will be on the floor by next week, but other than that, we're just continuing standard operation.
All right. Wildcat Media. Wildcat Esports.
Hello everyone. Wildcat Esports is still going well. Team and the streaming is still running. That's great. Practice scheduling has been finished and pricing is proceeding well. Should be done by the end of this week, if not next week. And additionally, events coming up include the Peak event this Saturday, October 18th. Nintendo event has been moved to Saturday, November 1st, and Fragfest is Friday to Sunday, November 7th to 9th.
Alrighty, that concludes organizational reports. Moving on to old business, starting with bill number 2526-01. Senator Fisher.
Motion to accept Senate Bill number 2526-01.
Do we have a second? Second by Senator Rose.
We, the member of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do hereby enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to create a process within SGU policies and procedures and SGU financial policy that allows minor editorial updates to be made without full Senate legislation, improving document maintenance and accuracy.
Alrighty, moving on to discussion of the bill. Is there any discussion? Senator Weddle.
Motion to add under 16.6.4 that the information included will also require not just the signature of the Secretary and Policy Committee, but the signature of the SGU advisor, given that, from my understanding, they are part of this approval process. I yield.
We have a motion to add a bullet point under 16.6.4 to add into the bullet point, signature of the Secretary, Policy Committee Chair, and SGU Advisor. Is there a second? Second by Senator Novak. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion, we'll move into voting to add into that signature. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed, and all those who abstain. That passes 10-0-1. Back into the bill as a whole. Is there any further discussion? Senator Weddle.
I realize that it states the Policy Committee Chair, which is effectively, under our current policies, just the SGU Vice President. Is there a reason that wording was chosen as opposed to simply it just being the SGU Vice President? I'm going to yield to the Chair.
All right. President Lunahara.
The reason for this is because the Policy Committee Chair oversees the policy in general, and maybe sometime in the future, the Policy Committee Chair might not be the Vice President. It might change or for whatever other reason. But the reason why I put the Policy Committee Chair is because the Policy Committee Chair is mainly in charge of policy-related things. I yield.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion? Senator Novak.
where the concern comes with the fact that it's basically, I mean, now that it has the advisor, it's not as much, but beforehand it was basically just this has to be signed off by the vice president and secretary. And in the past, we have had e-boards, which were all just, everyone in the e-board was just one big friend group, and so they would kind of always sign off on anything that their friends were doing, and so therefore there is the feel that something the vice president wants to happen if the friends of the secretary, not saying this will happen now, but it could happen in future semesters. The vice president would make the change, sign off on it, and then the secretary would sign off on it just because they're their friend and not without actually looking at it. And therefore there's a chance that this doesn't actually have enough checks and balances to be fully safe from that happening, if that makes sense. I think that's where the concern's coming from.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion? Webb.
Extent of the explanation. Could we please explain again why organizations are not overarching in this bill? I yield.
President Lunaharo.
I think the general consensus was because this involves the policies and procedures and financial policy. When regards to the organizations, you have your own secretaries and whatnot, and then we would still want to discuss with you guys intimately how you guys want to handle each, because the structure of each organization is different, and we haven't consulted with you guys in terms of how you want this to be implemented in your own policies. I yield.
Senator Weddle.
Procedures they encompass all of the orgs. The organizations are defined within the SGU policies and procedures. To the extent that the SGU policies and procedures are able to be updated by the secretary, the policy committee chair, and the SGU advisor, it seems odd that a sub-document, as it were, that is subject to the enforcement of the policies and procedures can't be updated. We have organizational representatives at the Horseshoe with us right now. I'd love to hear their thoughts on it. I'm going to yield to Webb.
Point out, I don't have a secretary. It's not in my policies and procedures to have a secretary, so that would fall on me, like added duties. It's also not in my contract, so there's that area. And then I guess the SGU policies in all is like an overarching, it's a broad aspect of the organizations, but I still would appreciate if somehow we were mentioned in this, or somehow the organizations would be told somehow. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
Build off that a little. Under the proposed policy, the secretary would have to notify the entire Senate, right? The Senate business meeting, and that includes our organizational representatives. Pretty much for every single meeting, the orgs are expected to send a representative. To the extent that this is meant to be minor editorial changes, right? We're talking about adding punctuation. We're talking about fixing spaces, fixing typos that exist within our policies and procedures in the SGU financial policy. I guess I don't see why we shouldn't extend that to the organization policies as well, given, respectfully to all of our orgs, they suffer the same problems that we do, right? The reason these documents get so muddled and mixed up is because they're created by students who are always getting into office, leaving office, getting into office, leaving office. It's not very consistent, right? And my understanding is that's why this bill was introduced in the first place, to have a very easy way to address these problems that doesn't require legislation, given the organizations both suffer the same problem and are underneath the student government policies and procedures to begin with, I don't see why we don't expand this to the organizations. It seems foolish to have them restate a similar sort of editorial amendment system within their own policies and procedures. The policies and procedures of the organizations are supposed to be defining which policies the organizations follow. They are already required to follow all of SGU policies and procedures because they fall under SGU. I yield.
Senator Novak.
Didn't you guys have a secretary all of last academic year? At least I remember there was a secretary for Web. Whatever happened to that position? Why was it removed if Web still needs a secretary? I yield to Web.
It's actually not in our policies that we need a secretary. It was removed actually, I believe, Advisor Wadsworth's year, so 2023 area. Obviously, I have been taking care of it, but I didn't see a need for secretary exactly if anything came up, but I can't tell you the exact reason why it was fully removed. I yield.
President Lunaharo.
So I want to make it clear to everybody that we are planning on having this apply to our organizations. However, right now, the focus right now is on the financial policies and the policies and procedures in specific. And like Webb mentioned, they don't have a secretary, so it means it would be very complicated to have this apply for them. And for example, CFP, they have 2 secretaries, and the structure of each organization is different. So the way we're going to fix their grammar mistakes or all that things will depend on each organization, and that is something that is a whole discussion to be had with the organizations. That is why this just focuses on the SGU's policies. I yield.
Director of PR.
I would like to suggest a motion to table this back to the author, as this was a concern that was voiced last week as well. And it seems like it hasn't been addressed, and I understand the need for to push out a bill as soon as possible, but I think it's better if we get it right the first time so that we're not coming back to the same issue. I yield.
Senator Rose.
This was said by our president last week, but I think we wanted to just get this out, even if it can't apply to orgs, just so we can start doing stuff with it now, and then we can work on another bill for orgs later. I believe. I yield.
Point of order, aren't we currently in a motion?
No. Yeah. Yeah. Wildcat Esports.
I would just like to say this bill has been on the table for, I think, since the start of the semester. It's been on the table for like 2-3 months. And the thing is, I'm not sure if you're allowed to amend the bill after it's been passed. That's another story. But like, you could just make another bill to add organizations to it later. There's no need to add organizations now, but I do see the point of adding it. It would make sense to add it now, as it is also just minor editorial changes. I think the thing is, originally I hadn't considered that it was being, the updates were being voiced at the meeting. I thought it was just going to be like to the Senate and not to the organization. So in that sense, I'm okay with adding organizations, but I wouldn't mind if we put it in a separate bill.
Advisor Wadsworth.
The only thing that I wanted to bring up was that I think that there is a lot of value to bringing it to the organization level as well. But I understand where the president is coming from, and that we would need to identify each specific organization and how that would work. Like he mentioned, CFB has 2 secretaries, Web has none, Esports has 1, you have 1. So it varies across each org, so I don't think it's quite as easy as adding it in as just one line. I definitely think that would need to be thought through a little bit and identified as to what orgs are comfortable with it or what orgs may not want to and where this applies. But I do understand, It's always come to a trial period. So if this maybe this won't work for SGU at all, and we want to remove it by the end of the year. Maybe it works really well, and esports wants to adapt it as well. So I think adding a little bit of flexibility to see how it starts out is always beneficial. But this is a pretty large piece of legislation to add in. I haven't seen anything like it in the past, so I do think that there is benefit and value in trialing it out just for a little bit. Yield.
Excuse me. Senator Weddle.
Wildcat Esports and to our advisor, right? Our orgs have all sorts of different structures. However, every single org, per our policies and procedures, is required to have a head or a president. To me, it seems very straightforward to simply add in something that states, in the event that it's an organization document, they will also additionally require the approval of that organization's head. Given this, I'd like to make a motion to amend 16.6.0 to state, have the authority to make minor editorial changes to SGU governing documents and its subsidiary organizations without requiring formal Senate legislation, and then to add in under 16.6.1, add another sentence that just states, in the case of an organization's documents being edited, they will also require the approval of the organization's head or president. Don't really care about the wording. Either's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Just to clarify, you said 16.6.4.1 for the secondary signature?
16.6.0, and then in addition to 16.6.1, I'd be more than happy to write out the motion and send it to the Senate if they'd like.
Alrighty. We have a motion to amend 16.6.0 to state shall have the authority to make minor editorial changes to the SGU governing documents and subsidiary organizational documents, and then the addition of subsection further clarified by Senator Weddle of adding the signature of the organizational head in the case of an organizational document. Do we have a second? Second by Senator Rose. Moving to discussion of the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? We'll start with Wildcat Esports.
My biggest thing with that is how exactly is the system going to work for checking with organization head? Because would it be like a per week basis, or would it be whenever they want to make a change? How would the contact be?
Laid out as the current policy is, that just states they're required to get the SGU advisor, policy committee chair, and SGU secretary's signature. Given we all work together, we're all pretty much on the same campus, I imagine you could do it over email, right? I don't think we have to specify exactly what that process looks like. If people do, we can certainly continue to be detailed within this bill, but just stating that it requires the approval, it leaves it up to those individuals to figure out how exactly do we get that approval. And then it does state later that they have to be publicly logged, right? And those signatures will have to be publicly logged somehow. I don't know if we're doing digital signatures, I don't know if we're doing scans of papers with people's signatures on them, but either way, the policy states it has to happen. So that's just the policy as it is. It's really just extending it to add a fourth party. I yield.
Senator Rose.
7.0 it says that members of the Senate may motion for review if they believe the change exceeds editorial scope. I do wonder, like, could just the org heads, if they have any issues, motion to review with the same process a senator would? And that could potentially cover the org heads needing to approve the changes. I yield.
So, point of information, it does say members may motion for the review. Since org heads do have motioning power, they are members who are able to make a motion, and so therefore they can motion to review. Webb.
I was just going to say, based off of how it sounds, it
would be that if organizational editorial amendments need to be made, the org head would be included in that conversation, and then we would go through the changelog process. I feel it best if it's not like literally brought to the Senate and the org head finds out at the Senate meeting. It's best if it's like, even if it's like a meeting real quick or like a real quick email that's like, hey, we're gonna put a comma between this sentence so it breaks the sentence up. At least the org head should be informed before it's brought to the Senate. I think that's how it should be formatted. I yield to Wildcat Media, or
include a statement under 16.6.1 that adds, in the case of an organization's document, the organization's, I don't think I decided between head or president, but we can just go with president. President must also approve of the change.
Senator Novak.
A lot of the confusion that's going on right now is because we're just trying to do too much in a single motion when this should really just be a longer conversation that should be written on paper so we can also keep track of all the changes happening. Maybe even another bill, so that way we can actually, have a conversation of this is what the changes are, this is what they physically look like, and that way we're not just trying to keep track of this all in our heads. And basically, I think we should not be doing this in a motion. We should be doing this either in a rewrite of the bill and tabling it back to the offer, or we should be doing this in a second bill itself, because we can make companion bills. There's nothing out there saying we can't make another bill that then changes the scope a tiny bit of a previous passed bill. That has happened before. That happens last academic year of the CFB policy bills. And so we can just do that. Anyway, I yield.
Okay, esports.
Yeah, Senator Novak brings up a suggestion that we've been discussing earlier, but I think since we're already in the discussion, the further discussion of adding organizations to it, realistically, I think as long as all 4 organizations are okay with it, I don't see a problem with it. And my only point would be potentially adding a line of saying, instead of always head, if they have a secretary, you could also delegate it to the secretary as well.
Well, Advisor Wadsworth.
The only thing I wanted to mention was that, to Webb's point of they don't want to find out on the Senate floor, based on the interpretation of the motion at hand, there could be an instance where approval is considered voting on it during the approval in the Senate floor, if that makes sense. So that could be approving it while it's on the agenda. So there might be instances in this case where it is interpreted that you can approve on the Senate floor once you get the agenda. At that point, you will have had the agenda for 24 hours, but just wanted to throw that out there if that's an edit you all want to make. But I just, from interpretation, it could be interpreted that way, so I wanted to throw it out there. I yield.
So point of information, just how it's stated and how the amendment was stated, they need the approval of the org head before the change would be added in. So, and then at that point, it's then added to the change log to be voted on in the Senate meeting. So you have 2 checks there. It comes to the org head first, and then it comes to the General Senate afterwards in the meeting. Anyways, Senator Novak.
Noticed with Advisor Wadsworth's suggestion is org heads lack voting power, so org heads would never be able to vote on these changes because all things that are voted on are voted on by the Senate. And I don't know if I feel like giving voting power to the org heads would be its own discussion. I mean, not trying to prove it, but if we're doing a voting, oh, this are the changes, we're voting on it, the org heads wouldn't be part of that vote. It would just be the senators. I yield.
Senator Weddle.
Kind of clarify that the organizations have, based off policies, nominally no control whatsoever over them. If the Senate wants to change an organization's policies, they can do so. They are the ones that enact the policies and the Constitution for the organization. The organization president is not a part of that process. We sort of just have to rely that the Senate is sane and not going to make wild changes in that fashion, in the same way we have to rely on the Senate to not butcher our policies and procedures in all sorts of ways. So I understand that as a concern, but given the organization president is required to approve these changes before they even come to the Senate floor, and then they're able to motion for review, even though they're not the ones that vote on it, I still feel like that's enough checks and balances, especially considering this is really only supposed to be editorial changes. This is going to be minor typos, grammar fixes, punctuation, spacing, formatting. We're not looking to have the SGU Secretary Policy Committee Chair, Advisor, and Organization Advisor Organization President just add in new policies willy-nilly, because that would be outside the scope of this policy. I yield.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the amendment to 16.6.0 and 16.6.1. All those in favor of the amendment, first of all, would you like me to fully read out the amendment again? Okay. The amendment being changing 16.6.0 to have the authority to make minor editorial changes to SGU governing documents and its subsidiary organizations without requiring formal Senate legislation, and then 16.6.1 to add in, in the context of the signatures, the SGU advisor, the policy committee chair, and the SGU secretary must have unanimous approval of any changes before they report to the Senate business meetings. In the case of an organization, the organization's president must also approve of the changes. So we will now move into voting on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain? That passes 9-1-1. All right, back into the bill as a whole. Is there any further discussion for the bill? Seeing no further discussion. Oh, sorry. Senator Rose.
I didn't get to mention this when Senator Novak was talking about how there could be concerns of maybe some of the students involved in approving changes just being friends and being like, yeah, sure. I think there is enough redundancy that even if some of the people that have to sign off on it aren't being fully in good faith, I think it's still fine because it still has to go through all the signatures and the Senate. So I yield.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion for the bill as a whole? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor of Bill 2526-01, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain, that passes 11-0-0. Alrighty, that concludes old business. Moving on to new business, resolution number 2526-03. Senator Novak. Sorry, did I say bill? I meant resolution.
The Senate at SUNY Poly wish to pass Senate motion. Motion to accept Senate Resolution number 2526-03.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Senator Ritchie.
To tick-tock on the clock, the purpose of this resolution is to have clocks installed in classrooms and requested offices, whereas a majority of classrooms on campus do not have clocks, and whereas clocks will enable both students and professors to better track time during class. Therefore, be it enacted, wall clocks to be installed in classrooms which do not already have one, and enacted, any office that may like a clock to be present in the room may request a wall clock to be installed in the room, and enacted, broken wall clocks around campus will be repaired or replaced. Therefore, be it resolved, students and professors will be able to keep an accurate track of time during class, and be it further resolved, professors would be more aware of the students' time event going over the allotted time for the class, and be it further resolved, every classroom will have a clock, and be it further resolved, officers that have requested a clock will have clocks, and be it finally resolved, that any non-functional clocks on campus would be restored to a functioning order.
Alrighty, moving into discussion on the resolution. Webb.
Table this resolution indefinitely, since I'm going to explain my reasoning. This resolution is literally a copy paste of resolution 2122-18, which is a resolution from 2021. The 2021 resolution was passed on December 9th, 2021, and there's no reason to spend our time recycling old resolutions. As well, that if the current executive board feels strongly that the clocks haven't been installed and there's issues, they should be holding the campus accountable for what the students asked for 4 years ago. I yield.
Our audience member.
I made a motion.
Apologies, point of order. I didn't realize it was a motion, my bad.
Yeah.
We have a motion to table indefinitely. Is there a second? Second by Senator Weddle. Excuse me, my throat's going. All those in favor of tabling indefinitely, please raise your... Is there discussion on tabling indefinitely? Apologies. No. Moving into discussion on tabling indefinitely, Senator Rose.
Like our president said earlier, I believe they're working on a system to ensure resolutions actually do get followed through. So I think we don't need to necessarily do this. That will just be part of that system. I feel.
Webb.
This bill was literally already passed.
That's what I'm saying. Is that
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
that we don't need to pass it again because that will be under the new system that our president is working on.
RN's member.
Hello again. Malcolm Mathers. Today I'm speaking on behalf of Design Develop Club. I just heard of this yesterday, so excuse me if I'm not caught up on things, but I wanted to mention that Design Develop Club spent a good time of last semester looking into and planning a project to put clocks in all of the classrooms. Club members would design and construct the clocks and work with facilities to install them in the classrooms. We had contacts at facilities willing to put them in, and we just ended up running short on time and a little bit of funds last semester. So if that's something SGU is interested in doing, we're more than happy to provide this service to the campus. I yield.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion on the motion to table indefinitely? PR?
I had a question for the president about this accountability system. Will it also backtrack on old resolutions, and if so, how far back? Because this is a while we're talking here on that the 21-22 resolution. So I yield.
President Lunahara.
So right now it's a work in progress. I mean, obviously the past resolutions that have been passed, we will look at them. So we'll backtrack up to. It's still a discussion to be had with the administrators. How far back are we going to look at these resolutions? And as of right now, it's a work in progress. It hasn't been solidified yet, so once everything is set up and solidified, we could have a proper discussion on it. I yield.
All right, Senator Novak.
I just want to say, part of this resolution and the original resolution that was passed is not enforceable even by the school. Specifically, be it further resolved, professors should be more aware of the student's time event going over the allotted time for the class, because there are multiple professors, especially in the graduate level, who know they are going over time, and even though they know they're going over time, will continue to talk for another hour or 2 hours, talking about important materials that is going to be on the midterms or finals, or that's important stuff to learn for the class, and they do not care that they are going overtime, and the school officially cannot do anything to enforce the fact that this is a problem. And I know that because last fall semester I brought up this concern because I had 3 classes which were going an hour overtime on, they were graduate classes, to the provost of student affairs. I know she's no longer with the college, and she said this was a problem that was technically non-enforceable by the school, and the school can't do anything about it.
All right.
And that's all I have to say, and I just wanted to point that concern out there.
Is there any further discussion on postponing indefinitely? Senator Rose.
I think we should just go with the system that's being worked on to and actually have resolutions go through. I yield.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll be moving into the vote on the motion to postpone indefinitely. All those in favor of postponing indefinitely, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain, that passes 10-1-0. All righty. Moving on to, Bill number 2526-08, Senator Weddle.
526-08.
You may continue.
We, the student government at Utica, enact as follows: to update committee-related policies to current day and provide a better outline for committee responsibilities and requirements.
Alrighty, moving to discussion on the bill. Is there any discussion? Pro Tem Ludewan.
Under Appendix E for standing committees, the first few committees listed as the title, it's just like budget, class, gift, but then if you go down, it's that added the word committee. So I think maybe either have them all have committee at the end of it or just take committee out of it for consistency.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion? Senator Weddle?
Committee from the title of all the standing committees under Appendix E, if it exists.
Alrighty. We have a motion to remove the word committee from all titles of the listed committees under Appendix E. Is there a second? Sent up by Pro Tem Ludewan. Moving into discussion of the amendment. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, does anyone disapprove of unanimous consent? All right, that passes unanimously. Back into the bill as a whole. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Senator Weddle.
Just looking at 14.8.0, it states this committee. I'm not quite sure if that's just a grammatical snafu or, yeah, okay. I'd like to make a motion to change it to state that committees are required to complete a transition document at the end of the year or when the committee chair steps down. And then I'm going to yield to our president if I do get a second.
So a motion, is there a second to change it from this committee to committees are? Okay, second by Senator Fisher. And then President Lunaharo.
It's just a suggestion from my end. Since the other bill just passed, I feel like this would be a really great time to test the bill to see how it works. So this would be a great time to see how exactly the process will be. So I yield.
All right, we are in discussion. Senator Weddle. Motion is rescinded. We're back into a bill as a whole. Wildcat Esports.
Seem to change meaning. The problem is this committee would presumably, right, refer to a committee stated previously, but this is under the general article about standing, not even about standing committees, about committees. So it's not even clear, I guess, at that point which committee it's referring to. My understanding is it was, keeping in mind the intention of the policy, it seems like the intention of the policy was to state that. I understand what you mean about how it does change the meaning of the sentence, but the sentence right now is sort of a nothing burger of a policy. I'm going to yield back to our esports representative.
Yeah, no, I completely understand the need for the change. It's just, my thing is about the policy that was passed for editorial changes. If we allow changing the meaning of a sentence because we all understand the need for it, further, like future edits could potentially change the meaning of a sentence without like people wanting it to be changed. So I just want us to be careful about allowing this as our first usage of the new policy, if that makes sense. I yield.
Pro Tem Ludewan.
Be wrong on this, but in my viewpoint, it seems more of a grammatical, correcting a grammatical error than changing the meaning of the sentence. Just echoing what Senator Weddle said, it's under the general article for committee requirements. It's not specific to any committee above, so more seemed to be a grammatical error on my end.
Senator Novak.
We all completely ignoring the fact that the new policy we just passed for the editorial amendments doesn't even affect this, as this is a bill in new business that is not currently policy. Therefore, it cannot even be touched by the thing we just passed, because the thing we passed only affects policies and procedures and financial policy. And currently, this is a bill. It is not policies and procedures, and this won't become policies and procedures theoretically until like 2 weeks, because we'll be voting on it the next time we have a meeting we're voting on, which means we're not voting on next week. We'll be voting on it in 2 weeks, and then we have to wait for the week after that for this to then be able to come up in the editorial changes. So there's no point really talking about or trying to do editorial changes as a way to get around this right now, as it's not in the scope of that. I yield to our advisors.
So I think that there might be a little bit of confusion. I think that this is going to be, hypothetically, if it passes, it's going to be policy, which then in turn the editorial amendments legislation impacts. So it could impact this, it could change it once it's in the policy, if that makes any sense. You are correct in the sense that it's being read this week. Next week, hypothetically, it could be voted on, and then the following week on the agenda. At that point is when it would be brought up on the agenda. But it can be edited through the editorial amendments once it's in policy, if it gets to policy. I'm going to yield back to Senator Norway.
We are meeting next week, but we are not discussing any resolutions or bills next week due to the career fair. And I feel like instead of having a change that we could do now through a resolution, through an amendment, I feel like we should do the change for the motion instead of waiting 4 weeks and hoping that we all remember this is a problem that needs to be fixed. If that makes sense. I feel like there's just no reason to push it back.
All right. Director of PR.
Just want to also clarify further. We changed. Let's go. We changed SGU policies and procedures and SGU financial policy to just SGU governing documents and subsidiary organizations. So, on that clarification, and also, then why did we pass the bill for having that editorial amendments to begin with? We're just gonna do it through amendments as well. I yield.
All right, Senator Fisher.
What I want to say is, the problem is the editorial amendment bill is, you can make minor editorial changes as long as it doesn't change the scope or change the bill for the meaning. The change this committee is required to, all committees are required, does change it. Because, yes, this committee sounds kind of like we're saying it in Old English. That's still going to change it, so I feel as that we should amend it now. I yield.
Senator Rose.
Our president said, we could totally do this with a motion. It's just we wanted to test out the new system. But I think given that this will probably be a while until it's actually able to be amended with the new system, and it's a controversial change, we should just get this done with an amendment and test out the new system with something more clear cut. That's just a very simple change. I yield.
Senator Weddle.
Could I just ask either the Chief of Staff for the Secretary to amend this within the bill? My understanding is that's well within their powers per our House rules. It's a grammatical error I think we've all recognized, and the Secretary or the Chief of Staff is welcome to change that. I understand you don't have to change it this minute, but if you could just change it and we'll all keep it in our heads that that change has been made, I think we can move along, because it doesn't seem like we're actually discussing the bill anymore. With that in mind, to move back onto discussion of the bill, I note that under 14.8.0, it states that the committee is required to complete a transition document at the end of the year or when the committee chair steps down. My understanding is committees, historically, there's been a decent amount of shuffling that happens around, especially as senators leave, new senators come in. I don't know that we can realistically expect senators who are outgoing at a random time to just suddenly complete a transition document. At least if it's always at the end of the year, then the committee set up the following year has that transition document. They can look back, they can see what was done in the last year. But to take, for example, our absent treasurer, are they expected to complete a transition document for budget committee, which hasn't even met because they're now stepping down? It seems a little strange to do that. I think if we just solidify it to only be at the end of the year, we're going to have a lot less transition documents to deal with, and even empty transition documents, because I don't think budget committee has even met this year, but per this policy, if and when it passes, they would be required to complete one. I yield.
Point of information, just to the general body. That is a good point. The only one committee that is an issue with that is election committee, as they kind of step down after each election, and it's not always at the end of the year. Is the only time that would be an issue, but general discussion back open. Senator Weddle.
At the end of the year, really, I think would only apply to standing committees. Election committee is effectively an ad hoc committee, which is just to a specific purpose. You could certainly add something in there that states, standing committees are required to complete a transition document at the end of the year. Ad hoc committees are required to complete a transition document when the committee ends. I yield.
Senator Novak.
As someone who was actually in the position of being a committee chair and then no longer committee chair due to no longer being a senator, no offense, but if I'm no longer be a senator, why should I be expected to do a job of a senator, especially if it's something last minute? And it's something to think about because I lost my position as senator due to a special election, and we are currently doing a special election in which we can theoretically have 6 of our senators lose their positions, and some of those senators are chairs and co-chairs. That means that if they lose the election, we are still expecting them to do the duties of a senator when they are no longer in the position or even contracted to be in that position, which kind of is another reason why we should move it when the chair steps down, because it's kind of, asking a bit much. Hey, you're no longer in this job, do your job.
Pro Tem Ludewan.
Kind of going back to our Vice President and Senator Weddle's point earlier with, what was it? The transitional document after chair steps down, and the concern of election committee, I think it would be better, just a suggestion, take out or when a committee chair steps down from the article, and we do have election committee under standing committee because it's a standing ad hoc committee. You can add that section there to have it election committee specifically have a transitional document after the chair steps down for only that committee. But that's up to opinion for the rest of the Senate.
Senator Fisher.
I just noticed a minor minor grammar that could be fixed with House rules. In 1410.1A just has to be removed, so it states if a vacancy within the committee occurs within the positions, the vice president will assign replacements. It shouldn't say a replacements. I yield.
All right. Senator Novak.
I'd like to make a motion to amend 14.8.0 to remove or when the committee chair steps down, and then under election committee add a bullet point that says when election committee ends, a transition document must be written by the chair of election committee.
All right. We have a motion to cross out under 14.8.0 the end of the sentence starting with or when, and then under Appendix E, under election committee, to add in a bullet pointed section underneath, not a bullet pointed section, but a additional section underneath to state that a transition document will be required to be made at the conclusion of election committee. Do we have a second? Second by Pro Temp Ludewan. Moving to discussion on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Wildcat Esports.
Instead of completely removing it election, have it be when the committee chair resigns or something like that, so that it's an incentive to make them still do their job and to stay as a senator and not just get rid of their duties. I yield.
Pro Temp Ludoan. Yeah, so just point of information in general horseshoe. Usually transition documents are worked on at the end of the year by the entirety of the committee. So even if a senator steps down at the very end of the year, you still have the rest of the committee potentially working on that transition document. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, we will now be moving into the voting of the amendment, which is the changes to Appendix E and changes to 14.8.0. All those in favor of striking out "or when the committee chair steps down" and adding the additional section under election committee, please raise your hand. All those opposed? I apologize. I forgot you guys were sitting over there. My bad. We're going to run that back real quick. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain?
I'm sorry. I apologize for speaking out of turn. I meant to vote no.
Okay.
To work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're going to redo it one more time. I apologize. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those who abstain? That passes 10-1-0. Back into the bill as a whole. Is there any further discussion for the bill as a whole? Senator Fisher.
14.9.0, and it says chairs must meet with the vice president twice a semester. The first meeting should take place within the first 4 weeks following the fall election, the first 4 weeks of the spring semester. If I'm reading that correct, that would need to be twice a year?
That's point of information. That's referring to just the first meeting.
Okay.
Is there any further web?
Outline, what if we had the problem that we had last year where we didn't really have a Senate and we couldn't start these committees until December? What would happen then? How would that work? I yield.
Just point of information, that in reference to what was just discussed. All right. Advisor Wadsworth.
Answers your question at all. So we didn't have a Senate until the fall election, and it says that they would need to take place 4 weeks following the fall election. So we should be good there, but good thinking. I yield.
Web.
If we don't have enough senators to fill some committees, is my only question to that. I yield.
So point of information, point of clarity. If we cannot fill committees, it's the executive board's job to decide if they should be dropped or not. In the case of this year, we dropped safety and facilities and class gift, and then we had to put it into legislation to get them re-added back in. Yeah. Senator Rose?
Say that the first meeting with the vice president would just be the first meeting of the committee? Or no?
Oh, okay. Point of information. So we were in discussion of how they have to meet, twice a semester, and then Senator Fisher had asked if, by the wording, it would only mean that they have to meet once, since it says the first meeting shall take place in the first 4 weeks. The point of information that I gave to him was that that's just talking about the first meeting. You still have to do 2 meetings, but that the first meeting is just in 4 weeks. It's not referencing whether it has to be the committee meeting. This is specifically with the chairs, not the committee itself. Yeah. Any further discussion on the bill as a whole? Senator Weddle.
I'd like to make a motion to add 14.8.0, a second sentence that states ad hoc committees, including election committee, must submit a transition document when the committee has concluded. Just because it doesn't really seem like ad hoc committees are covered under that first part that states it has to be at the end of the year. If you establish an ad hoc committee in September and it's done by November, I don't think anyone's going to remember what actually happened come May. I yield.
All right, we have a motion to add a second sentence under 14.8.0, as stated by Senator Weddle. Is there a second? Second by Senator Fisher. Move in discussion of the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Senator Novak?
That motion needs to be reworded because otherwise we're now going to have twice in this one bill saying that election committee needs to make a transition document when it gets dissolved. And I don't think we should really do it. I guess it's like reword it to then also say to remove the section that was added to election committee in Appendix E that election committee needs to create a transition document when it gets dissolved.
Alrighty, is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing no further discussion, we'll move into voting on the amendment. All those in favor of adding the second sentence to 14.8.0, please raise your hand. Does everyone know what the second sentence was again, or would you like me to repeat it? Senator Whittle, if you could repeat the sentence.
14.8.0 currently reads that this committee is required to complete a transition document at the end of the year. This will be adding a second sentence that states ad hoc committees, including election committee, must submit a transition document when the committee has concluded.
All right. So, as I said before, we're now into voting. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Is your hand up or down? Okay. All those opposed? And all those who abstain? That passes 9-0. Back into the bill as a whole. Pro Temp Ludewan.
I'd like to motion to remove the addition we made prior to election committee under standing committees.
We have a motion to...
Would you like me to be more specific?
No, I'm trying to remember. Clarity to the advisors. Are we allowed to revoke a motion that was already made within the meeting? Yeah? All right. We have a motion to remove that added line to election committee. Is there a second? Second by Senator Weddle. So this was the line added into the two previous motions ago when it was to add in that election committee needs to create a transition document at the dissolution of the committee.
Out.
No, this was an amendment that was made during this meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It was seconded by Senator Weddle, so we're now into discussion on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, does anyone disapprove of unanimous approval? Seeing no disapproval, that passes unanimously. Back into the bill as a whole. Is there any further discussion on the bill?
Would this be something that could be removed with the new editorial amendments because it's a repeated clause? Or is that not covered?
Either way, it's passed anyway, so on the bill discussion as a whole. Senator Weddle.
To 155.
We have a motion to push back open forum. Is there a second? Second by Pro Temp Ludewan, our advisor.
To throw that up there, I yield.
Alrighty. Anyways, since it was seconded, on to the vote for pushing back open forum. All those in favor of pushing back open forum to 155, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain? That does not pass. Did you need to account for the votes?
181.
Okay. Anyways, back into 191. To the discussion of the bill as a whole. Is there any further discussion for the bill? Senator Weddle.
Standing committee has to be voted on by the Senate through resolution. I'm just looking to communicate to the room a little bit of policy committee's thinking on that, given that these are already established standing committee per our policies. I'm going to yield to the chair.
Yeah, so it was kind of unclear whether we just had to make a motion to the Senate to add in committees, like through announcements or such, or if it had to go through like actual physical legislation. So we just wanted that in there for clarity's sake. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Senator Weddle.
Do you think it would be an overreach of power if the reactivation of those standing committees was simply determined by the executive board if and when additional senators are added? I yield to the chair.
That, I would say, would be up to the Senate on this motion if they would like to add that in. We are now into open forum. Is there anyone who would like to announce their candidacy for today? Yeah.
Who were voted on by a resolution need to go up if they want to continue to be a senator.
Executive positions included in this election?
Correct.
Per our policies and procedures for referendums, or rather elections, there's supposed to be a candidacy period of 2 weeks before the grace period during which candidates can announce. I'm just curious what the executive board considers as the grace period, because it doesn't seem like we've had a 2-week grace period. I understand the election was referenced as possibly being opened last week, but we're supposed to have a grace period of 2 weeks. So is that beginning today? Because in that case, executive candidates couldn't announce until 2 weeks from today. I yield to the chair.
Are you asking whether you can announce candidacy, or talking about the grace period during which you can no longer announce candidacy and you have the debate? Senator Weddle?
My understanding is there's a 2-week period beforehand, before they there's a candidacy. I'm just going to quote from the policies and procedures. For executives election, there shall exist a candidacy period with a length of at least 2 weeks before the grace period. The grace period being the time during which you collect signatures, campaign, and so forth. If I have my understanding correct, I'm just going to yield back to the chair.
Yeah, so you can announce your candidacy, but as that grace period afterward, like, we're no longer taking submissions for the executive elections. That's where you get the rest of your paperwork and have the debate and everything, and that's when you need to get that in. You can announce this during the candidacy period, that 2-week period. So you can announce candidacy today, but like during that grace period, that's your final week to get in the papers and everything that you need. And that is also the week that the debate happens, and that you can no longer announce candidacy for an executive position.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Is there any discussion for open forum? Senator Novak.
One is a quick thing for esports. Currently, Overwatch Team A is going to Syracuse to play in a LAN event, and they have not received the funding they need to do that because some of the equipment they have has not been approved yet. And then also the coach of Overwatch Team A, who is supposed to be there to give live coaching, has not received funding for a hotel, and currently is going to be required to stay in his car for the entire weekend because he has not received any funding for that. And the second thing I have is for CFB. Currently, there's not any policies or anything to remove a club executive from the powers club executive. And currently, there's been some problems with club executives being saying racist stuff during club meetings, and also some club executives also mistreating other club executives, and there's no way to get rid of those club executives who are, well, making it other club members uncomfortable to be there, and it's kind of forcing the club members to either put up with it or to have to quit the club.
News for that are probably more appropriate than this forum. You can talk to me after, and I'll refer you through the bias process.
All right, our audience member.
My name is Summer Wu, and I'm announcing candidacy for secretary.
Our
Hi,
audience
my name
member.
is Jackson Beckman, and I'm announcing my candidacy for SGU treasurer.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Lasorsa, and I'm announcing for SGU Secretary.
Hi, I'm Aiden Pena, and I'm announcing for sophomore senator.
Hi, I'm Kendrick Corduran. I'm announcing candidacy for sophomore senator.
Hi, I'm Amna Khan, and I'm announcing candidacy for senior senator.
I'm Kai Hoganson, and I'm announcing my candidacy for SGU treasurer.
I'm Michaela Ritchie. I'm announcing candidacy for junior senator.
Senator Weddle.
Exactly sure how to do this, but I'm just going to make a motion to direct policy committee to, not during the current special election, but during the executive election in the spring, put out a referendum for the SGU Constitution. The SGU Constitution is in horrible condition. I'll leave it at that. I yield.
All right. President Lunahara.
So there are things we want to change in the Constitution, so that might happen. In addition, we also have SGU Chief Justice. I didn't see any candidacy, so anybody's interested, it is an open position. Thank you.
I am willing to announce candidacy for Chief Justice if no one else is interested.
Senator Rose first.
Chief Justice do.
Thank you. Alrighty. Any further discussion for open forum? All right, audience member.
Hi, I'm Grayson Weddle. I'd like to announce my candidacy for SGU treasurer. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion for open forum? I apologize. Our res life rep.
Am I allowed to make motions? Entertain.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I entertain a motion to
Yeah. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but can I entertain a motion to add residential life representative to director reports as it was last year on the agenda? Am I allowed to add that?
You could have just asked me. I forgot that it was on the
Oh,
list.
my bad.
Sorry.
Okay.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion for open forum? Senator Ritchie.
Or for Chief Justice.
Is that a... Yeah.
Announce candidacy for 2 positions? I don't know that for a fact.
I'm going to refer to the advisors on that one. Tell me what the election policy is, please.
I want to say no, but I will look into it. I yield.
Alrighty. Webb?
This is not at all target, I promise. Are you a freshman? Am I correct? And then if you're a transfer. I'm so sorry. You're a transfer. Isn't it my understanding that you have to have a full semester before you can run for an executive board position? I thought it was for the whole executive board. Can we please get clarification on that? I'm so sorry. I was
Yes.
just really confused.
You got it. All right. Is there any further discussion while our president looks into this? Senator Weddle?
Sorry. There's been some bills passed, and my understanding is the policies and procedures uploaded onto Engage have not been updated with those changes. I'm just wondering when we're going to see those. Most of those policies don't pertain to the majority of the student body, but it would be nice if we could have those available. Thank you.
Alrighty. Director of PR?
For Wildcat Media, could we get 2 mics on this end at least? So.
Have a good one. Our advisor.
Treasurer require one full semester, and by the time they swear in, it will be a full semester. So just like we do it for the spring ones. I yield.
All right. Senator Novak.
Michaela's running for Chief Justice. Can't she just bring back her candidacy for secretary and then bring forward a candidacy for Chief Justice? So that way we're not having to worry about this. Not, I don't know what the word is in English, but like remove that candidacy and then
Rescind
bring
it.
back. Rescind it, yes. Isn't this an option?
President Lunahara.
Sorry, I'm not answering your question. I just want to say, when I mentioned that there's nobody for Chief Justice, I'm not pushing you to like remove your senator candidacy. I'm just letting people know. So you still have 2 weeks to fully decide. I'm not sure exactly if you're fully decided or not.
Was to announce my candidacy for Chief Justice, and I was to lose. Do I still stay a senator?
Can I refer that to the advisors?
I would need to do a deep dive into Robert's rules regarding this. However, my understanding of Robert's rules is that you can run for multiple positions, but you can't hold two positions. So if you win both of them, you have to figure out which one you want. So there's that, if you're running for two positions. For Senator Fisher, you already are a senator. You were elected. So for you, if hypothetically you weren't to get that position, you would still be a senator because your term isn't up yet.
Senator Ritchie.
Senator, I would like to renounce my candidacy for Chief Justice.
You never announced it anyways, so you're all good. Okay.
My candidacy for Chief Justice.
Alrighty. Webb.
I love Kai. Kai's great. When he's sworn in, wouldn't that be end of November and the semester concludes in December?
So he would have to go through a training period. We've already timed it out. That training period would then lead into next semester.
Okay.
That was
Thank you for that clarification.
Senator Weddle.
For Webb and our advisors, it doesn't state that the president and vice president must have completed 2 full semesters and that the secretary and treasurer must have completed 1 full semesters. It states that candidates for those positions. He cannot become a candidate until he's completed a full semester. I don't understand how he's able to run in an election if he's not eligible to be a candidate. I understand he might be eligible to be a candidate later, but how can he run in an election if he's not eligible to be a candidate for that election? I'm going to yield to our advisor.
Off record, I hate talking about somebody in a public meeting. This is a little harsh. So if it's directed to somebody specific for questioning policy, that's a little bit different. But from my understanding, we should follow the same thing that we've always done, which is anybody that's committed 2 full semesters at SUNY Poly has been able to run in the spring election. That's how it's been done previously. So that's what I'll leave it as, up for interpretation. If the executive board thinks otherwise, they're welcome to think so. I guess this would be for election policy as well, or election committee. So whatever you all think. I yield.
Cool. President Lunahara. Oh, okay. Senator Novak.
I was going to say, last semester we still had a transfer student become vice president. Yes, it was through a wheel chain and succession thing, though he was technically supposed to run and the special election and didn't. That was its own whole mess last semester. But he was only at the school for 1 semester and became vice president. And before then, the executive board was planning, which our executive board did include Senator Weddle, was planning on running him through the special election, despite the fact that he is only at the college for 1 semester. using the same logic that is now being used to say that the vice treasurer can run for treasurer. That's all I have.
Point, like, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah,
Can
it was
I do
point of
that?
clarification.
Yeah.
And point of other clarification? No, we have all the senators over here.
Fine.
Senator Weddle.
Speaking about anyone specific, I'm really just looking at the policy itself. To respond to Senator Novak, I was never on election committee last year. I've always encouraged people to run for office if they're eligible. I can't state beyond that. But just to return to policy, because I really think this is a policy question, it states that they must have completed 2 full semesters. I understand that they may have committed to multiple semesters, but if a student hasn't completed a full semester, they haven't completed a full semester. And I'm just really curious as to how someone can run in an election when they don't fit the eligibility requirements for candidacy, right? There's a GPA requirement as well. Your GPA might look better next semester based off your grades at the end of this semester, but that doesn't mean you can just rely on what your grades this semester might be, how that influences your GPA, all of that. It's really just, the wording is very black and white. It states completed full semester. It doesn't say half a semester. It doesn't say enrolled in a semester. It says that candidates for president, vice president must have completed 2 full semesters at SUNY Poly. Candidates for secretary and treasurer require 1 full semester. The unstated wording there is require 1 full semester to be completed at SUNY Poly. I guess I'm just really lost insofar as how you can come to the interpretation that they don't actually have to complete a full semester or 2 full semesters. I'm going to yield to Wildcat Media. They've had their hand up for a while.
A motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by, Jesus Christ, sorry. Second by Senator Hordern. Yes, okay. Got the last name right. I'm happy. Anyways, going into the vote on adjournment, all those in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. All those opposed and all those who abstain, that passes 801. We are now adjourned.